Welcome, fellow seekers of wisdom. In this series, we'll explore the fascinating world of philosophy. We'll delve into the deepest questions that have perplexed humanity for centuries, from the nature of reality to the limits of human knowledge, from the principles that guide our moral decisions to the structures of logical reasoning. We will cover it all. Let's begin with an essential question. What is philosophy? At its core, philosophy is the love of wisdom. It's a discipline that encourages us to ask profound questions about our existence, our knowledge, our values, and our reasoning. It's a journey that doesn't just seek answers, but also appreciates the beauty of the questions themselves. In this introductory course, we'll delve into 4 key areas of philosophy: metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, and logic. These areas form the foundation of philosophical inquiry and help us navigate the complexities of our world. First, let's talk about metaphysics. This branch of philosophy examines the nature of reality. What is the world made of? What is the nature of existence? Philosophers like Plato and Aristotle pondered these questions centuries ago, and their ideas continue to influence contemporary thought. Plato's Republic is one of the seminal texts in metaphysics. In this work, Plato explores the nature of justice, the structure of society, and the theory of forms, an idea that suggests there is a higher, unchanging reality beyond our sensory experiences. Plato's theory of forms posits that the material world we perceive with our senses is only a shadow of the true reality. According to Plato, the forms are perfect, immutable, and eternal, whereas the material world is imperfect and constantly changing. This dichotomy between the world of forms and the material world raises profound questions about the nature of reality and our ability to know it. Plato illustrates his theory through the allegory of the cave. In this allegory, prisoners chained inside a cave see only shadows cast on the wall by objects behind them, lit by a fire. These shadows represent the material world, while the objects casting the shadows represent the forms. The journey of the philosopher, then, is to escape the cave and see the forms in their true essence. Aristotle, a student of Plato, took a different approach to metaphysics. He rejected Plato's theory of forms and instead focused on the physical world. Aristotle's metaphysics is grounded in the concept of substance and the nature of change. According to Aristotle, every substance is a combination of matter and form, and change is the actualization of potentiality. For Aristotle, the study of metaphysics is the study of being qua being, the nature of existence itself. He introduced the concept of the 4 causes to explain why things exist and change. The material cause, what something is made of; the formal cause, the form or essence of something; the efficient cause, the agent that brings something into being; and the final cause, the purpose or end of something. Aristotle's ideas laid the groundwork for much of Western philosophy, influencing later thinkers like Thomas Aquinas, who integrated Aristotle's metaphysics with Christian theology. Aquinas' synthesis of faith and reason became a cornerstone of medieval scholasticism. Moving forward to modern metaphysical questions, we encounter issues such as the nature of time and space, the relationship between mind and body, and the possibility of free will in a deterministic universe. Philosophers like Immanuel Kant, David Hume, and René Descartes have all contributed to these ongoing debates. Kant's critique of pure reason examines the limits of human understanding and the conditions for the possibility of knowledge. He argues that our perception of reality is shaped by the structures of our own minds and that we can never know the thing in itself, the reality that exists independently of our perceptions. Hume, an empiricist, challenges the notion of causality and the idea of a persistent self. In his A Treatise of Human Nature, Hume argues that our belief in causality is based on habit and custom, rather than rational justification. He also questions the existence of a permanent self, suggesting that what we call the self is just a bundle of perceptions. Descartes, in his Meditations on First Philosophy, begins by doubting everything that can be doubted in search of an indubitable foundation for knowledge. This radical doubt leads him to the famous conclusion, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. This statement becomes the bedrock of his epistemology, affirming the certainty of the thinking self. Modern metaphysics also explores the nature of consciousness and the mind-body problem. Philosophers like Daniel Dennett and David Chalmers debate whether consciousness can be fully explained by physical processes or if it requires a non-physical explanation. In the field of metaphysics, questions about the nature of reality, existence, and the mind continue to provoke deep and ongoing inquiry. As we move forward, we will see how these metaphysical questions intersect with other branches of philosophy, enriching our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Next, we turn to epistemology, the study of knowledge. How do we know what we know? What justifies our beliefs? Epistemology examines the nature, scope, and limits of human knowledge. René Descartes is a central figure in epistemology. In his Meditations on First Philosophy, Descartes begins by doubting everything that can be doubted, seeking a foundation for certain knowledge. This radical doubt leads him to the famous conclusion, cogito, ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. Descartes' method of doubt is a powerful tool for philosophical inquiry. By questioning all of his beliefs, Descartes aims to strip away falsehoods and arrive at something indubitable. His conclusion that he exists as a thinking being becomes the cornerstone of his epistemology. While Descartes emphasized rationalism, the idea that reason is the primary source of knowledge, other philosophers like John Locke and David Hume argued for empiricism. Empiricism asserts that knowledge comes from sensory experience. Locke described the mind as a tabula rasa, or blank slate, upon which experience writes. Locke's theory of knowledge is grounded in the idea that all of our ideas and knowledge are derived from experience. He distinguishes between simple and complex ideas, where simple ideas are basic sensory inputs and complex ideas are formed by combining and abstracting from these simple ideas. Locke's empiricism challenges the notion of innate ideas, arguing instead that the mind is shaped entirely by experience. David Hume, taking empiricism further, raises skepticism about the nature of causality and personal identity. In his An Inquiry Concerning Human Understanding, Hume argues that our belief in causality is not rationally justified, but rather a product of habit and custom. He also questions the concept of a persistent self, suggesting that what we call the self is merely a bundle of perceptions without a continuous underlying substance. Kant, responding to both rationalism and empiricism, offers a synthesis in his Critique of Pure Reason. He argues that while all knowledge begins with experience, not all of it arises from experience. According to Kant, the mind actively shapes our experience through innate structures and categories, such as space, time, and causality. This view, known as transcendental idealism, posits that we can never know things as they are in themselves, only as they appear to us through the lens of our cognitive faculties. In contemporary epistemology, debates continue over the nature of knowledge and justification. The Gettier problem, introduced by Edmund Gettier in 1963, challenges the traditional definition of knowledge as justified, true belief. Gettier's thought experiments show that it is possible to have justified true belief without having knowledge, prompting philosophers to reevaluate what it means to know something. Other areas of contemporary epistemology include reliabilism, which suggests that a belief is justified if it is produced by a reliable cognitive process, and contextualism, which holds that the standards for knowledge and justification can vary depending on the context. Epistemology also addresses the challenge of skepticism, the view that we cannot have certain knowledge. Philosophers like G.E. Moore and Ludwig Wittgenstein have offered various responses to skepticism, aiming to show that our everyday knowledge claims are not undermined by skeptical arguments. Understanding epistemology helps us appreciate the complexity of human knowledge and the importance of critical thinking. It reminds us to be cautious in our beliefs, to seek justification for our claims, and to be open to revising our views in light of new evidence. Now let's delve into ethics, the branch of philosophy that deals with questions of morality. What is the right thing to do? How should we live our lives? Ethics seeks to answer these questions by providing frameworks for evaluating actions and guiding moral decision-making. Immanuel Kant is one of the most influential figures in ethics. His deontological approach focuses on duty and the intrinsic morality of actions. According to Kant, we must act according to universal moral laws, which he calls categorical imperatives. These are principles that one must follow regardless of the consequences. Kant's most famous categorical imperative is the principle of universality. Act only according to that maxim whereby you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. This means that we should only act in ways that we would want everyone else to act in similar circumstances. For Kant, the morality of an action is determined by its adherence to duty and the rational principles behind it, not by its outcomes. In contrast, John Stuart Mill championed utilitarianism, an ethical theory that evaluates actions based on their outcomes. According to utilitarianism, the right action is the one that maximizes overall happiness or pleasure. Mill's principle of the greatest happiness offers a practical way to assess the morality of our actions by considering their consequences for all affected parties. Utilitarianism is a form of consequentialism, which means that the moral worth of an action is determined by its results. Mill's utilitarianism builds on the ideas of his predecessor, Jeremy Bentham, who proposed that we should seek the greatest happiness for the greatest number. Mill refined this principle by distinguishing between higher and lower pleasures. Higher pleasures, according to Mill, are those that engage the intellect and the emotions, such as reading a good book or engaging in meaningful conversation, while lower pleasures are more physical and immediate, like eating a delicious meal. For Mill, the higher pleasures are more valuable and should be prioritized when making moral decisions. Ethical theories are not only academic exercises, they provide frameworks that help us navigate real-world moral dilemmas. Consider the trolley problem, a thought experiment in ethics that poses a difficult moral choice. A runaway trolley is headed toward 5 people who are tied to the tracks. You have the power to pull a lever to divert the trolley onto another track, where it will kill 1 person instead of 5. Should you pull the lever? Utilitarians would likely say yes, because doing so minimizes overall harm. Kantians, however, might argue that it is wrong to intentionally kill an innocent person, even if doing so would save more lives. Ethics also addresses issues of justice and rights. John Rawls, in his book A Theory of Justice, presents a framework for thinking about justice based on the idea of a social contract. Rawls introduces the concept of the original position and the veil of ignorance, a thought experiment in which individuals design a just society without knowing their own position in it. This ensures that the principles chosen are fair and impartial, protecting the rights and interests of all members of society. Rawls' theory of justice as fairness includes 2 principles. First, each person has an equal right to the most extensive basic liberties compatible with similar liberties for others. Second, social and economic inequalities should be arranged so that they are both reasonably expected to be to everyone's advantage and attached to positions and offices open to all under conditions of fair equality of opportunity. These principles aim to ensure that justice is not only a matter of distributing resources, but also of guaranteeing that individuals have the freedom and opportunities to pursue their own goals. Contemporary ethical issues include debates over bioethics, environmental ethics, and the ethics of technology. Bioethics deals with moral questions arising in medical practice and research, such as the ethics of genetic engineering, euthanasia, and informed consent. Environmental ethics examines our responsibilities toward the natural world and future generations, raising questions about sustainability, conservation, and the moral status of non-human animals. The ethics of technology addresses the impact of new technologies on society and individuals, including issues related to privacy, artificial intelligence, and digital rights. The field of bioethics, for instance, grapples with the moral implications of advances in biotechnology and medicine. Topics such as cloning, stem cell research, and genetic modification pose significant ethical questions about the limits of human intervention in nature, the potential risks and benefits, and the ethical considerations of consent and autonomy. Environmental ethics challenges us to rethink our relationship with the natural world. Philosophers like Aldo Leopold and Arne Naess have advocated for a more ecocentric view, arguing that all living beings and ecosystems have intrinsic value and deserve moral consideration. This perspective contrasts with anthropocentric views that prioritize human interests and benefits. The ethics of technology explores the profound changes brought about by technological advancements. Issues such as data privacy, surveillance, and the ethical use of artificial intelligence highlight the need for careful consideration of how technology affects our rights, freedoms, and societal norms. For example, debates about the ethical implications of facial recognition technology and its potential for misuse in surveillance and law enforcement illustrate the complex intersection of technology and ethics. By studying ethics, we can develop a deeper understanding of our moral intuitions and learn to navigate the complex moral landscape of our world. Ethics challenges us to think critically about our actions and their consequences, to consider the well-being of others, and to strive for a just and compassionate society. Our final stop is logic, the study of valid reasoning. Logic provides the tools we need to think clearly and argue effectively. It helps us distinguish good arguments from bad ones and avoid the pitfalls of fallacious reasoning. Aristotle is often regarded as the father of logic. He developed the first formal system of logic known as syllogistic logic, which involves deducing conclusions from premises. For example, all men are mortal. Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. This simple yet powerful structure allows us to derive new knowledge from established truths. Aristotle's system of syllogisms is based on three components: the major premise, the minor premise, and the conclusion. A syllogism is valid if the conclusion logically follows from the premises. Aristotle also identified various types of syllogisms and developed rules for assessing their validity. In the 19th and 20th centuries, logicians like George Boole and Gottlob Frege developed symbolic logic, a more abstract and mathematical approach to reasoning. Symbolic logic uses symbols to represent logical forms and relationships, allowing for more complex and precise analysis. This formalization of logic paved the way for advancements in mathematics, computer science, and artificial intelligence. Frege's work laid the foundation for modern propositional and predicate logic, which are essential tools in formal reasoning. Propositional logic deals with the logical relationships between propositions, using operators such as and, or, and not. Predicate logic extends this by considering the internal structure of propositions, allowing for a more detailed analysis of arguments. Understanding logical principles helps us construct sound arguments and avoid common fallacies. For example, the ad hominem fallacy attacks the person making an argument rather than the argument itself. The straw man fallacy misrepresents an opponent's argument to make it easier to attack. The appeal to ignorance fallacy claims that something must be true because it has not been proven false. Other common fallacies include the slippery slope, which argues that a relatively small first step will inevitably lead to a chain of related events resulting in a significant impact, and the false dilemma, which presents two options as the only possibilities when in fact more options exist. By studying logic, we can sharpen our critical thinking skills and become better communicators. Logic is a foundational tool for philosophical inquiry and a valuable asset in all areas of life. It empowers us to reason clearly, evaluate evidence, and construct coherent and persuasive arguments. Logic is not only useful in philosophy but also in everyday life. It helps us analyze complex issues, make informed decisions, and communicate our ideas effectively. Whether we are debating a political issue, solving a mathematical problem, or planning a project, logical thinking is essential. Another important aspect of logic is the ability to identify and construct valid arguments. An argument consists of a set of premises that support a conclusion. A valid argument is one where if the premises are true, the conclusion must also be true. This concept is crucial in both deductive and inductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning involves drawing specific conclusions from general principles. If the premises are true, the conclusion must be true. For example, all humans are mortal. Socrates is a human. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. This type of reasoning is foundational in mathematics and formal sciences. Inductive reasoning, on the other hand, involves drawing general conclusions from specific observations. This type of reasoning is often used in scientific inquiry. For example, observing that the sun has risen in the east every morning for thousands of years might lead us to conclude that the sun always rises in the east. While inductive reasoning does not guarantee the truth of the conclusion, it provides a probable basis for belief. In addition to understanding logical forms and avoiding fallacies, studying logic also involves understanding the principles of argumentation and rhetoric. Rhetoric is the art of persuasion, and effective argumentation requires not only logical validity, but also the ability to communicate ideas clearly and convincingly. Throughout this course, we've journeyed through the foundational branches of philosophy, exploring metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, and logic. Each of these areas offers unique insights into the nature of reality, knowledge, morality, and reasoning. Philosophy encourages us to question our assumptions, seek deeper understanding, and appreciate the complexity of the world. It's a discipline that fosters curiosity, critical thinking, and a lifelong love of wisdom. By engaging with philosophical questions, we not only expand our intellectual horizons, but also enrich our lives. As we conclude this introduction to philosophy, I hope you've been inspired to continue exploring these profound questions. Philosophy is not just about finding answers. It's about embracing the journey of inquiry and discovery. The pursuit of wisdom is a journey, not a destination. Keep questioning, keep reflecting, and keep seeking truth. Thank you for joining me on this philosophical journey. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes. Stay curious, keep thinking, and until next time, keep seeking wisdom.